One of the most brutal, horrific, and destructive wars in human history began in Europe in August 1914. It lasted until November 1918. It led to an appalling death toll. Around 9 million people died in the fighting, with millions more permanently disabled and disfigured. For example, in France, 20% of those aged between 20 and 40 were killed. What led the civilized great powers of Europe to go to war with each other? Why had diplomacy failed to prevent such a catastrophe? The European powers had formed two rival alliance blocs by 1907. The Triple Alliance of Germany, Italy and Austria-Hungary, and the Triple Entente of France, Russia and Britain. These two alliance systems were a significant cause of tension and anxiety. One of the most serious causes of tension in Europe was the naval rivalry between Germany and Great Britain. The Second Naval Law passed in Germany in 1900 called for a doubling of the German battleship fleet by 1916, including the building of 41 battleships and 60 cruisers. By 1914, Britain remained in the lead, with 29 dreadnought-class ships compared to Germany's 17. The naval race was part of a wider arms race. In the period 1900 to 14, the main European countries more than doubled their spending on their armies. The introduction of conscription allowed for the creation of huge standing armies, and to support these armies, more destructive weapons were developed. All the European powers developed detailed plans for war. Germany's Schlieffen Plan involved attacking France quickly, then moving all forces to Russia to meet the mobilized Russian army. Mobilization was key to any successful plan, which meant railways played an important role. This meant detailed timetabling, the success of which depended on rigid implementation. France had Plan 17, Austria-Hungary had Plan R and Plan B, Russia had complex plans to attack both Austria-Hungary and Germany. Once a plan was set in motion, it could not be altered or stopped without creating chaos. The common feature of these plans was that they all assumed war would be a speedy affair. No one had anticipated a war that would last more than a few weeks. The system of alliances, backed up by increased military spending and war plans, created much tension in Europe. However, this tension would increase dramatically due to events in Morocco and the Balkans. Morocco in North Africa was one of the few parts of Africa not controlled by a European power. In 1905, Kaiser Wilhelm visited the Moroccan port of Tangiers, riding through the streets on a white horse accompanied by a military band and Moroccan troops. The conference at Algeciras was a disaster for Wilhelm. Only Austria-Hungary supported his views. The friendship between France and Britain had been strengthened. In 1911, Wilhelm sent a warship, the Panther, to the port of Agadir to protect German interests. Britain was concerned that Germany was planning to build an Atlantic base which would challenge Britain's navy base at Gibraltar. Germany backed down. France took control of Morocco and Germany accepted land in Central Africa as compensation. The Balkans was a very unstable area. Turkey, once a great empire, was now known as the sick man of Europe. The various national groups in the Balkans were keen to get independence for themselves, but Russia and Austria-Hungary were also interested in taking advantage of Turkey's weakness. In 1908, Austria-Hungary added Bosnia-Herzegovina to its empire. Most of the inhabitants were Serbs and disliked Austria. Serbia had hoped to make Bosnia part of a greater Serbia. Russia joined Serbia in condemning the move, but when Germany supported Austria-Hungary, Russia had to back down. Russia, determined not to have to back down again, intensified its rearming program. Serbia was furious and wanted revenge on Austria. Between 1912 and 1913, there was a series of local wars within the Balkans. A key result of these wars was that Serbia doubled its size. Serbia was now even more determined to unite all Serbs into a greater Serbia. The growing threat of Serbia made Austria-Hungary even more determined to crush the Serbians. By 1914, the situation in Europe had become extremely volatile. The alliance systems, naval rivalry, arms race, and repeated crises had created a powder keg. All that was needed was a spark to ignite the explosion that would engulf Europe in war. That spark would come in the summer of 1914 in the Bosnian capital of Sarajevo. On the 28th of June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was visiting Sarajevo. He was with his wife Sophie, and it was their wedding anniversary. Among the cheering crowds was a group of Serbian men who planned to assassinate the Archduke. One terrorist, Kabrinovic, threw a bomb at the car, but it exploded under the car behind. After visiting the town hall, the Archduke's chauffeur took a wrong turning. Gavrilo Princip found himself right by the Archduke's car as the chauffeur started to reverse. Princip stepped forward and fired his revolver, killing both the Archduke and his wife. Austria-Hungary was outraged at the assassination and immediately blamed Serbia. At a meeting in Berlin on the 5th of July, Germany gave Austria-Hungary the blank check, unlimited support. Austria-Hungary drew up an ultimatum so harsh that Serbia would not be able to accept its demands. Serbia agreed to all but the most extreme demands, but this was not enough for Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on the 28th of July and started a bombardment against Belgrade. Russia was determined to support Serbia. On the 30th of July, the Tsar ordered Russia's mobilization. Germany gave Russia 12 hours to demobilize and France an ultimatum to remain neutral. When the ultimatums expired, Germany declared war and began to mobilize. The French rejected their ultimatum and started to mobilize. On the 2nd of August, Germany demanded the right to send troops through Belgium. Britain was a signatory of the 1839 Treaty of London, which guaranteed Belgium's neutrality. When the Germans invaded Belgium on the 4th of August, Britain declared war on Germany. In just 5 weeks, a dispute between two countries had escalated into a European war. Eventually, nations from all continents would become involved. Within 3 weeks, the war plans of each belligerent had failed. The Germans were held back at the Battle of the Marne, triggering trench warfare and stalemate. In the east, the Germans inflicted heavy defeats on Russia at Tannenberg and the Masurian Lakes. The casualty rate was horrific. Over 250,000 Russians were killed in these battles alone. What had begun as a local conflict in the Balkans had become a world war that would reshape the globe. The complex web of alliances, military plans, and national rivalries had transformed an assassination in Sarajevo into the Great War, a conflict that would define the 20th century and cost millions of lives.